Okay guys, so we're back. I'm just gonna erase everything. All those steps I was talking about in the introduction. And so in this episode, yeah, it's gonna be method 2 that we're gonna go with, which is using basic shapes or the main shapes to create the proportions for the body. So it's gonna be 7 heads high. So we're gonna start with the head. We want the head to be sort of that big, I guess, roughly. Okay, so I'm just going to use that as a reference. This isn't always how I work, but it's just for the sake of the tutorial. We want the torso to be, I guess, 2.5, or you could say, yeah, 2.5 or 3 heads high. So again, just be from there to around about here for the torso. And then the legs are going to be, I guess I'm counting the base of the torso for that. It's not perfectly accurate, but yeah. So we're going to have the torso in between these two bits, and then we're going to have the leg as it says here. You would say the top of the leg starts here and then obviously ends at the feet, so 4 heads high. Cool. So the legs end up down here. Okay, so that's our main sections, and it's all defined by the head, the size of the head. Okay, so but we'll just start with the torso and make our minds up for the rest of it later. All right, so I'm going to add mesh cube, and I'm going to scale this down, and then bring it up to here, right about where the chest is going to be. And I'm just going to press tab to get into edit mode, scale this down. Also remember the depth of the objects matter as well, so I'm just going to make it quite slim. You get sort of a rectangle, and I'm going to rotate this a little upwards, because if you ever look at chests, they actually protrude outwards. Now the top of the body is 3 heads wide, or the top of the torso, or the top half of the torso, I guess. The chest part of the torso is basically 3 heads wide. So let's say this is our head width, so we want to go 1 and another 1. The shoulder's actually going to be pushed into that, so we actually don't need it to be 3 heads wide exactly, maybe a little bit narrower for the chest. Then I would go back in object mode, add a cylinder. I tab and edit the object because it doesn't change all the transforms typically, so it's also a good sort of habit to have whenever you're working with designing the characters. Don't always think that you have to do all your scaling in object mode. I'm just doing that usually just for speed. If you ever see me do it, it's better to do it in edit mode, so that way you can keep the origins of the objects. So add the cylinder for the torso. Again, think about depth. You're really just trying to get the shapes here. Don't worry about things being squashed shapes or anything like that. And then again, like I said, I'm going to press Shift A, and then wait, Shift A. Is it Control A? Yeah. So I'll Control A to set all transforms back to the center, and I'm going to just press Shift V to duplicate. Tab, push, bring this down, rotate this forward, and I'd say make this now 2 head widths wide. I guess you can argue that This isn't going to be the width for the head actually. This is the head probably actually a little bit thinner than that. So you can argue that this would be 2 head widths wide. So we're kind of eyeballing it here, but yeah, that's how I would go with this. Okay, so that would be the start of just the torso for the character. The rest of the pieces, we're not going to put all together now. I'll just get started with this torso, and then we can move on to the rest of the pieces afterwards. So, like I said before, we're going to be working with sculpting tools to do this. So, I'd say this is the best way to go about it. So all these parts need to just be able to join together. So, hold Shift, join this together, and then I'm going to go to sculpt mode and click on remesh and change this to 0.05, and then just click on remesh. Make this mirrored, and then you can actually start. This is an older version of Blender, but the tools are pretty much the same. So you want to use your draw sharp tool. You can draw a center line. I don't always do the center line, but sometimes it's actually good, because when you're actually making these things, you also realize anatomically there are center lines with the torso, also down the back. So I usually like just add that in before I actually start sculpting anything on top or anything underneath. So yeah, just give the center line to the torso, and it just helps you sort of reimagine everything as well as like all part of one unit. Anyway, so the next thing you want to do is start smoothing. So hold Shift, start smoothing things in again. I'm gonna zoom out, start smoothing things in, and what we're doing is just making all of it seem like one body part, or one torso. Okay, so from the reference, if it was just a sculpt from a reference, the first thing you're looking at is what are the underlying shapes. So again, the main underlying shapes is box for the chest, box for the pelvis, and also just that cylinder for the waist section. The chest is already wider, so we're already getting that T shape, but there's also like this little triangle. There's also this little triangle here, which is basically the lats. Okay, especially this is a muscular character, so we're going to add that taper for the lats there first. I haven't really, it takes a while to go over anatomy. I'm probably going to have to put in a episode about anatomy in depth, but typically what I go for is the bony landmarks first, and at the back you have the scapula, which is a major bony landmark, and also you would have like rib cages that could be apparent around the front, but the main things that you're seeing that are bony landmarks here, you actually don't see it here, but the plane changes. So you've got these main plane changes that are either defined by muscle, which is like the chest. The lines that I drew in the middle is actually defined by bone. So it's actually the chest attaching to the bone, and in the bone in the middle of the chest, in between these two chest muscles, is the sternum. So that's why that line is there. And essentially, you won't actually see a line going through the entire human body, but these lines are typically defined if it's muscular character by stuff like abdomen. The rib cages would be actually creating a V, so like an upside down V shape, or basically an A. But you'd still get the abdomen sitting on top of that, so there'll be like obviously 8 different abdominal muscles, and just all going down the front. But these plane changes would also be like either defined by some of the rib cage or some of the muscles. So I recommend actually going in and doing a bit more study on anatomy to do torsos and what I'm showing here. But essentially, that's what you're trying to achieve with the front half. And the back half is quite different, obviously, from the front half. So on the back half is what you can't see in the reference. You're going to have like the traps, so that sit sort of above the scapula, and you're going to have quite a lot of other muscles. So you're going to have like the trapezoids, and you're going to have the lats that pulled in, and then you're going to have also the serratus muscle. Those are the ones that you're going to probably see the most in like comic book characters and stuff like that. You also have the lower you can see part of the obliques, which is like on the side of the back, and then you've got this V that happens here. So you've got your obliques here, and then you've got a V that goes into the crest of the basically the crest of the pelvis bones. So you've got you've got like different parts of the pelvis that create a bony landmark at the hips. I forgot the name of the crest, but it's definitely a scientific term for it. And obviously this line that I drew down the back on the sculpt is representing the spine. So the spine goes down the back, and most muscles are attached to the spine, or like, you've got tendons that attach to the spine of the back as well. Underneath the scapula, or just around about here in the scapula, you've got this tennis ball like muscle, which is also it stands out quite a bit with muscular characters. And you've also got the shoulder muscles, which will come off the side here for the character. So there's a lot of anatomy happening here, and this wasn't even really supposed to be an anatomical video, but to draw a character, you kind of need to have some sort of understanding of anatomy. And all of this looks like a bunch of rubbish at the moment, because it's all scribbly and it's all messed up. So that was a very brief, like crash course on anatomy and what I'm actually doing, or what I'm actually thinking about when I'm creating the torso for the character, at least. And then there's a lot of other anatomical studies that you can do for character design. Essentially, for a stylized character, you don't have to worry too much about that, but you do have to worry about proportions more so than the actual anatomy, because you're just creating a stylized character. You're not really focused on muscle definition, but you do have to understand like skeletal structures, like where the humerus goes, and then where maybe like your character has got, your character, if it's a human, obviously is going to have 2 bones in the forearms, and also the bones for the hands that dictate how the fingers move and everything like that. Then you would also have you got your clavicle up here, you got your sternum around about here. So those bony landmarks are like actually really important no matter what type of character you're designing, because the skeletal structure dictates how the character can move. So you do have to learn anatomy to do character design. There's no way around it, to be honest, especially if you want to work properly and in proportions and make things feel like they should be moving the way they should be moving once you're animating them. But anyway, so the reason I tilted the cubes was to just make it easier for me to start sculpting in the chest, and the reason I drew the line down the middle is sternum, chest muscle, sternum. I think the top of this part is going to be the clavicle, and I'm just thinking about the anatomy straight away, like as soon as I start working. And the next thing I'd also do is look at it from the top down, because everything I know is going to be cubed, and you base your design off of basics, the basics of the skeleton. So with the rib cage, it's like an egg, or it's egg shaped. So now your entire rib cage is more like this, like it's egg shaped. So I'm just drawing half of it, but if I was to draw both sides, it would just be like an egg shape with an A in the middle, and then at the bottom you'd have your hips, and that would be tilted forward, but it would have like these crests on the side that would go down into your pelvis, and that's basically what I'm setting up for. But I'm kind of starting with the cubes to set up for the full structure of the body. So those are the main things you have to worry about. Again, comes down to the bones anatomy, and where everything's supposed to sit on the body. So let's just go back into sculpt mode again. Every time I come out and I'm just trying to explain things, or explain at least what I'm doing. Okay, so we kind of have an idea what we're trying to achieve. This character on the left, on the right, and what's going on with him. So what you're seeing at the back is basically the lats. That's why I've pulled that part out. But then, like I was saying earlier, the more you understand this stuff as well, is like the anatomy and everything, the quicker you can actually start building stuff. So this is why I do harp on about it. You will be able to make a character quicker, or at least get the forms of the character in a lot faster, because you're a little bit more confident on where things are supposed to go. When you're making a character at first, without any anatomy knowledge, you would always like second guess yourself for where things are supposed to go, or how things are supposed to look, and stuff like that. I know that the rib cage is a round shape, and also on the side, let's say the spine for a character, yeah, it goes down the middle, but how is it shaped from the side view? So you'd have your neck bone come out here, and it's like embedded into the body, but it's not as far to the middle as a lot of people think. It's actually towards the back, and then the base is quite thick, because that's where everything connects to the spine. So the base would be a lot thicker than I would say the neck part, like going forward and backwards for the spine. So when you're thinking about the side as well, you also got to think about the rib cage. So the rib cage would be a little wider out to the back, but a lot further forward than you think. And it's also got the furthest forward part is around about here on the rib cage, and then it goes back in to the top. So you've got this sort of almost like teardrop shape, but around about here is the clavicle, and it's very flattens out around this part. And then obviously you have the hips, which again I say is like rotated forward a bit, and the base of the hips, you've got your tailbone back here, and then you've got like the base of the hips around about here. So just having that as a reference, again, like look how crazy different those two parts are. So even I get it wrong sometimes. In terms of the size of the um, rib cage. So you're always going to keep that in check. I think it should actually, it's probably a happy medium in here. I think the original drawing, I wasn't really drawing it to scale. I was just like trying to give an example, but let's say the rib cage for this guy, yeah, is probably at happy medium with what the first two things I drew. So it's around about there, and that actually feels better when I'm drawing it as well. It makes sense to actually end there. So we're just going to end that there, and then we're also going to end it there for the side. So I think it's like that. There you go. So the rib cage for this guy should probably be around that point. Okay. Again, it's usually better to work with a reference, like of a front and side. So if you can find one, that is good. That'd be really good. But that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're gonna go through just building everything up. Okay, see you in the next episode.